Shabbat shalom, moadim l'simcha, all the stuff. The other day, my eldest son said to me, almost out of nowhere, he said, "Dad, were you on the basketball team?" And when he said this, I was a little bit offended because Jonathan doesn't talk about the basketball days. Between you and me, folks, I don't remember the basketball days fondly. I knew that either my parents or my wife must have spilled the beans and told him about the basketball days because I certainly didn't. So I paused for a moment and I said, "Yes, I was on the basketball team, but I don't like to talk about it." And he immediately asked the same question you all might be thinking right now. Why? What's so bad about the basketball team? Well, okay, I guess I'll tell you. But before I do, we've all got to acknowledge that what I'm about to say is not a popular idea, but it's something I can't help but truly feel. So please don't be offended if you don't disagree with me. Pardon me, if you don't agree with me. I will still think you're a good person. It's okay if you don't think that I am. Here we go. I don't really like sports. I know. I get it. Some people really like sports. They like the action. They like being a part of a fan base. They like wearing the shirt. They tune in. But there's some part of me that truly doesn't understand why people like sports. Even when I was a kid, I was never really impressed with athletes. I never understood why people cared. I remember when I was little, I'd see a picture of a guy, and I'd say, "Well, what does he do?" And they'd say, "Oh, Jonathan, this is the president. He makes all the decisions for our country. He makes laws, and he can start wars or stop wars. He's the most powerful guy in the world." I'd say, "Whoa." And I'd say a picture of like Troy Aikman or someone, and I'd say, "Well, what does he do?" And they said, I know I'm in Texas, right? Lightning could strike. I'd see a picture of Troy Aikman, and I'd say, "Well, what does he do?" And they'd say, "Well, he can throw a ball very far." I remember just not being impressed by that. So I say, "Well, who's that guy?" And they'd say, "Well, that's Michael Jordan. What does he do?" Just think about this. What can he do? He puts a ball through a hoop really well. Yeah. Now, I understand I'm the odd man out. Most people don't think like I do, thankfully. I get it. If everyone was a sports party pooper like I am, the world would be so much less fun. But as an adult, I feel like I've reached a point in my life where I can finally acknowledge, officially, that I'm just not a sports guy. I've found inner peace with that. I'm okay with it. But when I was much younger, everyone told me that I liked sports. And everyone told me that I would have so much fun playing them. But I never really did. And here's the real problem and the whole irony of this situation. I'm actually really awesome at sports. I mean, just look at me. I am enormous. I am a basketball coach's dream. Growing up, I was a foot taller than all of my peers, which made playing basketball so easy for me. I was awesome at offense. I was so huge. I could shoot from anywhere, and everyone was too small to block me. And because I was so big when I played defense, it was almost impossible to get the ball above me because I could just slap it down like some sort of big, grotesque giant. Pwah! But friends, every time I'd go out on the court, this is true, I would literally hate every second of it, even though everyone was telling me how much fun I was having. It actually really started to affect me. Is there something wrong with me? Is my definition of fun wrong? I would much rather be at home playing Nintendo or Dungeons and Dragons or some nerdy thing like reading comic books. Now, when I got older, I got even bigger, and then the football coaches found me. And in Central Texas, football is the actual religion. You know how Jews shut down for Friday night for Shabbat? In Bell County, we used to shut down for football on Friday night. And the cheerleaders and the band and the parade and... I was always on the offensive line. I was usually the center or the right tackle. And again, because I was enormous, nobody could ever get past me to get to the quarterback. I would just pummel the heck out of them. And I would do it, and I'd hear, "Good job, Hodson, keep it up," on the coach from the sideline. And I always felt bad pushing people over. That's not a good sentiment for during football. I'd push them over, and afterwards I'd always want to help the kid get back up who was just a greasy stain on the football field after I had just knocked him over. I feel like my entire football career consisted of going onto the field and just pushing people over for 2 hours while some other kid threw a ball and everyone cheered. I did this for years. And my football team won a litany of awards. I went to every game. I went to every practice, each time thinking that I would have fun at some point, but I never did. And you know how in sports movies, there's always this part in the film where the athlete wants to quit the team, and he goes to his dad or he goes to his coach, and they're like, they give this big speech. "You can't be a quitter. That never really happened to me. It's weird. It's like there was some part of me that knew that I had signed up for this, and I was a part of something bigger than myself, and I knew that quitting in the middle of the season wouldn't be the right thing to do, and I'd let my teammates down. So I went out there, and I practiced, and I played over and over and over, and in retrospect, I don't think I ever enjoyed any of it." I know. So now that I've given you this very depressing childhood anecdote, let's talk about Sukkot, shall we? Actually, let's begin. And this is where I want to get a little serious. Why is this Sukkot different than all other Sukkots? Well, friends, I don't know about you, but the potential, I should say theoretical hostage release that will take place tomorrow or perhaps on Monday, it has my anxiety raging at an all-time high. I can barely think. If you'll remember, it was on Simchat Torah in 2023 that Hamas invaded Israel. That was October 7th. And it's been 2 years since our hostages have been released, many of them held underground. Now, people keep reassuring me that the hostage deal will go through. I'm inclined to believe them at some point. They say, "Oh, the deal's been signed, it's going to happen." But I just want to remind everyone that we're operating with two sides, and the other side, the one that has signed off on the deal, should I remind them that the other side are literally terrorists? They have backtracked on a multitude of deals time and time again. So pardon me if I do not wholly and fully believe in the integrity of Hamas to do the right thing. I pray that I'm wrong. And at the same time, while I'm feeling all of this, hanging above my head, literally, is Sukkot. A holiday which the tradition and the sages mandate that I'm supposed to be happy. After all, this holiday is all about Zman Simchatenu, a time of our rejoicing. Friends, it's really hard to have joy when my neshama, when my soul is just eaten up with this anxiety. This feeling has affected my attitude toward this holiday. Everything feels like it is such a struggle to accomplish this Sukkot. Just putting up my sukkah was a debacle. I'll talk about that later. I barely got it up in time for the holiday. And now, when I shake the lulav and etrog, I feel like my mind is racing, just thinking about all the things that could go wrong while we attempt to end this horrible, horrible war. I sometimes feel like I'm just going through the motions, just trying to survive a holiday that I'm told is a whole lot of fun. And it brings me back to those sports days, a time that everyone said would be an absolute blast, but somehow I knew better. Friends, I want to acknowledge that the sermon I'm giving today might not have the most happy of messages, but I think it's one that everyone needs to hear because it's a message, it's the message that doing something, even when you don't want to do it, can be really meaningful and important. Looking back, yes, I hated sports, but I've thought about it and I learned so much from that experience. I mean, look, I'm still talking about it. I learned about teamwork and dedication and camaraderie and loss and defeat and how to listen to a coach. Life lessons I would not have learned had I just stayed at home and played Nintendo or Dungeons and Dragons. And please hear me, I certainly don't hate Sukkot. I believe that it's important to go through these motions even when I'm not feeling it, because I realize that my neshama, my soul, benefits from these traditions even when my anxiety does not. I want to share with you all a quote from the Talmud that I think exemplifies this way of thinking. This is from Pesachim 50b. It says, Mitok shelo lishma ba lishma. Quote, by doing something not for its own sake, we may come to do it for its own sake. Let me read that again. By doing something not for its own sake, we may come to do it for its own sake. Now, what does this mean? It means that when you do a mitzvah out of a habit or obligation, or some might call it Jewish guilt, if you do it rather than doing it out of love or joy, it still means something. Because if you keep doing it, the tradition says someday you might understand something about it that you couldn't understand before. So friends, if this holiday you're not feeling it, I want to encourage you to try and do it anyway, and to do it at whatever level you feel like you can do it at. Build your sukkah anyway. Shake your lulav anyway. Show up to shul anyway. Because even if you're just going through the motions, Jewish tradition tells us that those motions do matter. And if you're still not convinced, just let me remind you, I played football and basketball for years. I showed up to every practice, every game. I pushed people over like a good Jewish lineman is supposed to do, and I hated it every time. But in some small way, I guess it made me the man who I am today, a 6'3" rabbi who with trust issues around organized sports. But I have to hope, who knows, one day maybe my kid will look up at me and instead of asking me if I played basketball, he'll ask, hey Dad, were you ever really into Sukkot? And I'll pause and I'll smile and I'll say, I didn't always feel it, but I always showed up. And I hope you will too. Shabbat Shalom. Moedim l'simcha, Hag Sameach, all the stuff. Friends, we're going to